Hi, everybody. It's Connie Stewart with SimplySimpleStamping.com, back with another video in my Tuesday Tip Masterclass on ribbon. Today, we're going to tackle the problem that maybe many of you have run into. You're creating a card, you need a ribbon, and doggone it, you don't have that color. Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about how to color ribbon and customize the colors. So when you need that color right now, you're going to have it. I think you're going to like today's techniques, so let's get started. I'm so excited to teach you today's technique because even though Stampin' Up! Has some amazing colors of ribbon, let's face it, sometimes we want a specific color, and when do we need it? Right now when we're making a card, right? We don't have time to go order. So I'm going to teach you some ways that you're going to be able to use the ribbon that you already have. We're going to manipulate it and we're going to change the color. So today we're going to be using lots of different ones. I'm going to start with this Flowers for Every Season ribbon combo pack. And I'm going to start with just the white ribbon that comes in this pack. Now, what I have found is that any of the ribbon that is a polyester, 100% polyester, does fantastic with this. Now, that doesn't mean your other ribbons won't work, but test it before you go and devote yourself to coloring a piece of ribbon. Now, we're going to get a little messy today. Here we go. We're going to get messy. So I'm going to want some grid paper underneath me because, yeah, we're going to have a bit of a mess going on. So because we're going to start with just some white ribbon, we can use just about any color we want with white, right? So we're going to start with the sponge dauber technique. We're going to create some Coastal Cabana ribbon because we don't have a ribbon in Coastal Cabana. So I'm going to bring in a sponge dauber and I'm simply going to tap onto that sponge dauber and watch this. Boom, Coastal Cabana ribbon. And you can see we can just kind of keep rubbing it. And I want to show you a trick. If I rub really light, I get a nice light color. If I rub dark or I rub, really firm on it, I get a much darker color. Now, every time you color ribbon, you're going to want to flip it over. And you can see I probably need to get a little bit more here. Again, if I want a light color, I just rub it really gently on there and I get a lighter color. Isn't that gorgeous? So let's go ahead and make this a darker color. And actually, it can go very fast. I was going a little slow there, but not necessary. Now, the other thing you have to know about when you color ribbon, remember I said it was messy? Here's the other thing. It has to dry because it's still wet. Remember, it is just fabric and we've wet it down with a water-based ink. So we want to go ahead and let that dry. I do have a trick I'm going to show you here in a minute to kind of help speed it up. Now, you notice I've left the ribbon. Well, I'd like to say I left it on the spool. That's all I have left. I didn't realize I was almost out. See what I mean? When you need that ribbon, you need it now, right? So we're going to leave that like that. I'm going to let that dry for a minute because, like I said, I want to show you a technique for helping speed that along. But for right now, I'm just going to set that off to the side so I can create another color. Here is another fun technique. We're going to use Stampin' Blends to color our ribbon. So I have a light flirty flamingo because let's say I need a nice light pink. And you notice I'm using the side of my Stampin' Blend. We don't want to go on top. We don't want to smush down the tip of that. So we're just going to rub that right there. And because this is an alcohol ink, this is probably going to dry a little faster than the ink pad. So that looks really pretty. Again, let's flip it over. It actually looks pretty good on the other side. It looks like I just need to maybe get just the tops right there. That's actually very, very pretty. But you know what? Since I have the blends out, let me teach you another technique. I'm going to come in now with the dark Flirty Flamingo Stampin' Blend and watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to now create an ombre. Yeah, we're just going to take that dark and run it right along the bottom. Voila, look at that. Let's flip it over and see if we need to do any on the back side. No, I think it actually looks pretty good. We're going to let that dry. Let me kind of move this to a better spot. Do you see the pretty ombre? Yeah, so that's two different ways that you can use your Stampin' Blends. You can use it just to color, or you can create a gorgeous ombre effect. So you notice it was still left here on the spool. And that's so that I can, let's say I wanted to just create a simple little knot. I can come in and I can create my knot. This is where, do you see some of that ink coming off? That's why I said we want to let it dry. But now I can trim the ends. And if this one got a little rough while I was working, I can trim that too. And look at that. I now have a custom little ribbon knot. I can do the same thing here. By the way, this little extra, yep, gone. Don't even see that anymore. And so, yeah, I'm all set to also create a nice little knot with that. Now, if I wanted to create a bow, just make this long enough, probably about 8 inches or so, maybe 10, to make sure you have enough room that you can tie that into a bow. All right, let's do another technique. This is also 100% polyester, and this is our pale papaya in white. And you're going, but Connie, how are you going to do that? We're going to color right on top of it. It's a light enough color that we can actually do that. How about some Daffodil Delight? Yeah, what if we wanted to just kind of lighten this up? Now, I do need to tell you that because we already have some color in here, this Daffodil Delight's going to look a little bit different. So what do we want to do? We want to test it. Let's test it and make sure it's the color we want. So yeah, I think that looks really nice. And so just like you saw me do before, we can use a light touch. We can press firm and get that a little bit darker. By the way, you notice it's starting to shred because I'm running over it. But remember, we're just going to trim it off. Look at the other side. Yeah, that ink right there, that is not coming through. So we are going to want to go over the other side as well. Do we not want ink all over our fingers? We don't want it on our pretty card, right? Last thing we want is we finished up our pretty card and we tried to add that ink or that ribbon on there and then we got ink on it. We don't want that. Now I can just take this, trim it off. And here's one that I've already set aside and it's been drying. Can you see? There's still some ink coming off of it. So even drying, we're still going to want to kind of pull some of that ink out. That's where my tip comes in. You can use a tissue, you can use a paper towel, whatever works for you. But you see, I'm just going to run over. Do you see? And this is the one that's been dry for a while. So it just kind of pulls some of that last ink out. You can put it in between here and you can just get that extra ink off. We want to make sure it's coming out clean again before we go and add it to a card. And that is true with all of our inks because there's the one with the Stampin' Blends. Well, I got to tell you, the one with the Stampin' Blend is totally dry. I'm not getting any ink on that one. So definitely take the time to use a tissue or a paper towel to kind of pull off any of that excess ink. All right, here's one I did in that same pale papaya, and look at that. I did this one, I believe I did that one in Granny Apple Green. Look how different that looks. You'd never guess that it used to be the pale papaya in white, right? It's gorgeous. And now I have Granny Apple Green ribbon. I also want to kind of show you something that's a little bit different. So this used to be our Real Red satin ribbon, and I love satin ribbon. I love the shine. I did this one 2 different ways. So let me zoom in the camera because I want you to be able to see. So this one, I did that with the Memento Tuxedo Black and a sponge dauber, and I sponged it on. And I did it on both sides, and there you can see none of the red is coming through at all. Now this side over here, this one I did with a basic black dark Stampin' Blend. And I hope you can see some of that real red is starting to peek through just a little bit. It does kind of peek through. So in this instance, and that's why I said you're always going to want to test just a little piece, just a little 1/2 inch piece and test. But I definitely preferred my Memento Black over that red satin ribbon. But boy, it sure is a beautiful ribbon. Look at that. Ties very pretty. Here is another ribbon. Now this one is 100% nylon. Let's see what we get. This is actually Pool Party and it's a nice sheer ribbon. How about we try a light Misty Moonlight Stampin' Blend and see what we get. Ooh, that looks very, very pretty. I love that. Let's flip it over. No, looks good. I'm sure we can do the same thing with the sponge dauber. Let's give it a try. So we'll try a Misty Moonlight ink. Lay that flat. Let's see what we get. We'll just do them side by side so we can see. the difference. You really can hardly tell the difference, maybe just a tiny shade different. But I think either one of those techniques would work great. And then again, we can do a quick dry. Yeah, that's pulling off a lot of ink. Let's see if it's pulling it off from the Stampin' Blend. No, not too much, right? So that's kind of telling me I really like the use of the Stampin' Blends. Now, let's talk about the Stampin' Right markers, because I know you guys love your markers too. We can do it the same way we did with the Stampin' Blends. Remember, on the side, don't smush down the tip. So we can add that ink. Again, this is that Misty Moonlight because I wanted to compare all three so we could kind of see what we get. I, of course, would let this dry on its own, but we're going to kind of speed it up here. So now let's look at all three. So we have a Stampin' Right marker, we have an ink pad, and we have a Stampin' Blend. I don't know, guys. They all work great, but of course, you know, when we're drying it, I really recommend the Stampin' Blends because it's an alcohol-based ink. It's going to dry much, much quicker. Love it. I now have a beautiful, soft, Misty Moonlight bow. I do want to go ahead and mention that the new in colors for 2021, 2023, there's a sheer ribbon for that as well. And a lot of these colors are going to work quite well. Again, just like we did here with this pool party, don't forget you have other sheer ribbons that I think are going to work great. Here's one that I love. This is the scallop lace trim. Now it's in vanilla and it is very pretty, but sometimes, right, we just want to step it up. Let's try adding blending brushes. And I just happen to have a Magenta Madness blending brush right here on my desk. So let's just rub this. Oh my goodness, look at that. So soft and pretty. And I'll bet it goes all the way through. No, it does not. I told a fib. It does not. So it looks like we need to get both sides of this. This lace is also a nylon. So it is going to be just a little bit different. Let's see what it looks like if we went darker. Let me do darker down here on the end and see what we get. You know, not a lot of difference. I think it's just the color is going to be what it's going to be. So there's not a difference between going light or dark. But oh my goodness, won't that be gorgeous added to a card? Let's see if it needs a little rub down. What kind of ink we get off? A little bit, but let's see what happens with a piece that's been dried. So I did this one earlier, so let's see. Nope, look at that. If we just let it dry on the nylon, it pretty much, all the ink is good and dry. So now we can go from this to this, and just with a blending brush, boom, boom, done. Custom colored scallop trim. Here's one more that I want to show you. So this is a little bit darker ribbon. This is a gray granite. And I went over this one with a Blackberry Bliss Stampin' Blend. And you see now I have a really nice dark color. So when you're using the darker colored ribbons and you want to color them, I do recommend going darker. But remember, you can always test it. Just test a little tiny piece. Let's give it a try. How about we'll try the dark fresh Frieza. What do we get? Oh my goodness, I think that's gorgeous. And let's flip it over. Yep, it's going through both sides. So really it can go with some lighter colors as well. Guys, I hope that today's Tuesday tip really inspired you. How nice to be able to create the color ribbon that you need right now when you need it, and use the ribbons that you already have and get creative. Remember, we can use blending brushes. We can use Stampin' Right markers. We can use Stampin' Blends. We can use ink pads. You use what you have and create some gorgeous customized colored ribbon. Thank you guys so much for being a part of today's video. I hope you learned a trick or two. If you enjoyed the video, would you give me a thumbs up on YouTube? I always appreciate that. And remember to click that great big red subscribe button so YouTube can let you know whenever I'm back with a new video. We will see you guys next Tuesday for another video in the Ribbon Masterclass. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.